Imagine being a single mom who just wants to create a little sanctuary, a small farm where she can grow food and find peace. Now, picture a neighborhood group, the HOA, stepping in and bullying her, trying to take that dream away. That's exactly what happened to Sarah, a woman who seemed like any other mom next door. But what the HOA didn't know was that Sarah wasn't just a mom. She's a Navy war hero who once worked with the Pentagon. When the HOA started targeting her over her farm, they had no idea they were messing with someone who's faced far bigger battles than a few complaints about property rules. This story isn't just about a fight over a garden. It's about standing up to unfair treatment, about the unexpected strength of a woman who's been tested in ways most of us can't imagine. Sarah's story shows us what happens when courage meets injustice, and how sometimes the quietest people hold the most powerful stories. But the tension is only beginning. Will the HOA back down when they realize who they're dealing with? Or will this neighborhood dispute spiral into something much bigger? Stick around, because you're about to find out just how far one mom will go to protect her farm and her family. Sarah's journey didn't start with the farm or the HOA drama. Before moving to this quiet neighborhood, she spent years serving in the Navy, where she earned respect not just for her skills, but for her determination and bravery. Working closely with the Pentagon, she was part of missions that required sharp thinking and calm under pressure. But after all those years in service, she wanted a simpler life. A place where her son could grow up safe, where she could reconnect with nature. That's how the little farm came to be, a dream she nurtured with hard work and love. At first, things were peaceful. Sarah's neighbors barely noticed the garden she planted behind her house. But slowly, the HOA started sending letters, complaining about the farm not fitting the neighborhood's rules. What began as small warnings soon turned into fines and threats. The HOA board claimed she was breaking rules, disrupting the community's look and feel. Sarah tried explaining her situation, hoping for understanding. Instead, she faced cold bureaucracy and endless pushback. What the HOA didn't realize was that Sarah wasn't someone to be pushed around. The same strength that kept her alive in tough military situations was now being tested in an entirely different fight, one for her home and her rights. But why was the HOA so determined to shut her down? Was it just about the farm, or was there something deeper at play? As the conflict escalates, the stakes get higher, and the truth behind this neighborhood feud starts to unravel in ways no one expected. As the battle between Sarah and the HOA grew more intense, things started getting personal. Some neighbors, who once greeted her warmly, now whispered behind her back, influenced by the HOA's warnings. Rumors began to swirl. Some said the farm was an eyesore, others claimed it lowered property values. But Sarah couldn't understand why a simple garden was causing such a stir. For her, it was more than plants and vegetables. It was a symbol of hope and healing after years of sacrifice. Meanwhile, the HOA board members seemed united in their mission, yet cracks began to show beneath the surface. A few members questioned whether pushing Sarah so hard was really the right move. There were whispers that some on the board had personal grudges or hidden motives. Could this be about control or something beyond neighborhood rules? Sarah's friends started digging into the HOA's records and found some strange patterns: fines issued inconsistently, selective enforcement, and a lack of transparency. At the same time, Sarah was juggling life as a single mom, working hard to provide for her son while trying to fight this uphill battle. Her military training gave her strength, but the emotional toll was heavy. Nights were spent drafting emails, researching legal options, and preparing for the next HOA meeting. Friends encouraged her to stand firm, but fear lingered. What if the HOA pushed her out? The community was watching closely now, divided between support and skepticism. No one knew how far this fight would go or what it would cost Sarah and her family. And as tensions rise, the question remains: will justice prevail, or will the power of the HOA silence a voice that deserves to be heard? The pressure on Sarah was mounting like never before. The HOA had scheduled a special meeting to decide her fate. whether she'd have to tear down her beloved farm or face serious penalties. The whole neighborhood was buzzing, some eager to see the farm go, others quietly rooting for Sarah to win. Sarah knew this meeting would change everything. It felt like the final showdown, but deep down she was ready. Her days were consumed by preparing, gathering documents, writing statements, and even reaching out to old contacts from her military days for advice. She wasn't just fighting for her garden anymore. This was about standing up against a system that seemed determined to silence her. The memories of her time with the Pentagon gave her strength, reminding her she had faced tougher battles and come out stronger. But the tension wasn't just legal. Neighbors who once smiled now avoided her, and the whispers grew louder. Sarah felt isolated, even as a few loyal friends offered quiet support. The HOA's attitude had shifted from simple rule enforcement to something more aggressive. Notices piled up, deadlines loomed, and the threat of losing her home felt real. As the day of the meeting approached, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Sarah knew this wasn't just about a farm. It was about fighting back against unfair power, about protecting her family, and about proving that no one should be bullied out of their own home. But what she didn't expect was the surprise that would drop during the meeting, something that would change the game entirely. And when that moment comes, everything hangs in the balance. Just as the HOA meeting began, with neighbors packed into the community hall and tension thick in the air, Sarah was ready to speak her truth. But then something unexpected happened. The HOA president pulled out a letter, an anonymous complaint alleging that Sarah's farm was not just a nuisance, but potentially dangerous. The letter claimed there were unapproved structures and even hinted at environmental violations. The room fell silent. Sarah was blindsided. She knew her farm was perfectly safe, but these accusations threatened to shift the entire conversation. Suddenly, the fight was no longer just about neighborhood aesthetics. It was about Sarah's integrity and her right to live in her own home without harassment. Whispers grew louder, some neighbors shifting even further against her. The board seemed energized by the new allegations, doubling down on their demands and threatening legal action if she didn't comply. But Sarah wasn't going to back down. She had documents proving everything was above board, and she quietly suspected the complaint was part of a bigger plan to push her out. There was a sense that someone wanted more than just her farm gone, maybe her entirely. The mystery deepened, and the stakes skyrocketed. With her reputation on the line and her home under siege, Sarah found herself fighting not just the HOA's rules, but an unseen force working against her. The community's true colors were starting to show, and the battle was about to get even more intense. What happened next would shock everyone and change everything. As the meeting reached its peak, Sarah stood up, calm but firm, ready to defend everything she'd built. She presented her evidence, permits, environmental reports, even photos showing the safe, well-kept state of her farm. The anonymous complaint crumbled under scrutiny, revealing itself as a baseless attempt to intimidate her. The room shifted. Some neighbors looked guilty, others impressed by her courage. Then Sarah dropped the final bombshell. She revealed that she'd been in contact with a local veterans' rights group and had enlisted their support. They had started looking into the HOA's practices, and what they found was shocking. The HOA had been selectively targeting not just her, but several residents who didn't fit their ideal neighborhood mold. The evidence pointed to a pattern of unfair enforcement and even possible discrimination. The HOA board members scrambled, realizing their power was slipping. The community was forced to reconsider. The HOA agreed to halt all fines and open a full review of their policies. Sarah's farm was safe, for now. She had won the battle, but the war for fairness in the neighborhood was just beginning. Just as the meeting seemed to wind down, one last surprise emerged. A neighbor stepped forward, confessing they had filed the anonymous complaint under pressure from someone else, a figure no one expected, someone connected deeply to the HOA's leadership. The room fell silent. This revelation opened a new chapter in Sarah's fight, one that promised even more challenges ahead. But for now, she had shown what it meant to stand tall, no matter the odds. The confession rocked the room, sending a ripple through the community. The neighbor revealed that the anonymous complaint was pushed by a small group within the HOA leadership who didn't want Sarah's farm or her presence in the neighborhood. Their motive wasn't just about rules or appearances. It was about control and fear of change. This admission brought clarity to what had felt like an uphill battle from the start. With this new information, the HOA board agreed to a thorough investigation into their own practices. Sarah's farm was officially cleared of all allegations, and the fines were dropped. More importantly, the community began to reflect on how power had been misused and how easily voices like Sarah's could be silenced if no one stood up. Sarah's bravery sparked conversations about fairness, inclusion, and respect for neighbors who dared to be different. For Sarah, the fight was about more than just her garden. It was about reclaiming her home and her dignity. After years of service to her country, she wasn't going to let a small group of people bully her into giving up on a life she wanted to build for her son. Her Navy training had prepared her for challenges, but this personal battle taught her new lessons about resilience and community. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's farm became a symbol of hope and determination. Neighbors who had once doubted her began stopping by to apologize or simply to say they admired her courage. Slowly, the neighborhood started to heal. Sarah's story reminded everyone that standing up for what's right can inspire change, even when the odds feel overwhelming. This isn't just a story about a single mom and her farm. It's a story about strength, justice, and the power of one person to make a difference. And while the road ahead may still hold challenges, Sarah has shown that with courage and heart, no obstacle is too big to overcome.